Welcome to Perspectives On, where we're giving the world a voice. I'm Lara Lane White, your host. So, with the global population expected to reach over 9 billion by the year 2050, there is a continuous need to increase food, quality of our food, production, its availability in order to meet the growing demand for proper nutrition and amendment the increases in food prices. In fact, according to the Food and Agricultural Nation and the United Nations, it has been projected that food production will need to increase by 70% in order to meet the average daily caloric requirements of the world's population just by 2020. These facts, from a global perspective, actually parallel the reality on a local level. According to the USDA, over 8 million American citizens were uncertain, having or unable to acquire enough food to meet their nutritional needs, either because they had insufficient money or other resources just to have something to eat. And 13% of households with children were food insecure in the year 2019, and it's projected that number is even more now. We can look around our local communities and notice that there's been a significant shift toward more Americans growing their own food at their homes and in community gardens. The mission of Perspectives On is to provide awareness on ways everyone can improve their quality of life through activism, whether it be through our faith, political advocacy, the climate crisis, and most of all, as what we're going to talk about tonight, food security. So tonight's segment aims to address the average person and their quest to grow their own food. Now you may be wondering how to grow vegetables. With maybe you have no space, but with full sun exposure. And believe it or not, many vegetables will tolerate harsher shade. And a few could even be considered shade vegetables because they won't tolerate full sun exposure. So there's a wide variety of things you can actually grow. Maybe you live in an apartment with not much more than a bathroom, but you love fresh vegetables and would still like to grow food on your own. There's no problem. So here are some top tips. Tonight we're going to be blessed with some experts that have been growing food for a while, and they are going to share what they know with you in terms of growing your own food. First, we have Mr. Calvin Foster. Mr. Foster, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us our viewers a little bit more about yourself? I think you have yourself muted.
Hey, good afternoon. Sorry about that. Thank you for having me on the show. I'm excited about being here this afternoon. And so I'm an Atlanta-based organic gardener, retired Marine, and just here to help share my knowledge on making things grow from doing it from a lifetime.
Awesome. Let's see. Miss Catherine, can you introduce yourself and tell us about who you are?
Hi, everybody. My name is Catherine Juhan Arnold. I've been growing food since 2013, 2014. I run Baby Katie's Farm and Kitchen, a local nonprofit in Snellville. I'm just out here trying to make a difference, feed people.
And making a difference you are. Mr. and Mrs. Jones, tell us about who you
are. My name is Tony Jones. This is my wife, Belinda. I'm a retired Army. I don't know about being an expert, but we're trying to grow a little vegetables here on Morning Glory Homestead Farm and on beautiful St. Helena Island, South Carolina. So we're here to try to give to you what we've learned over the years. We've been farming since 2016.
Well, you know a lot more than myself and a lot of my viewers. So we're glad to have each and every one of you here tonight to share your expertise. Let's just start out by talking about. I mean, we just want to jump right in and understand. Can each of you name a technique? Let's just start there. Name a technique that that somebody could use if they just wanted to start out growing their own food. Anybody?
Throw some seeds in the dirt, just scatter them and see what they do.
And see what they do, huh?
Yeah. Don't be afraid to make any mistakes. And as you know, one of the helpful hints on this is that each one of the counties have a county extension. I think if you're in Georgia, it should be out of University of Georgia. They have an extension agent there with master gardeners on staff. And those folks are more than willing to give you any advice, even to take some soil in and let them test your soil to tell you what you can grow and what you probably need to add some amendments to your soil to grow other things.
Oh, you know, that's one thing that I wanted to ask you about. You mentioned in our last show on farming about getting a soil test. Now, a lot of people don't really understand what is a soil test and what is the benefit of a soil test?
A soil test will definitely help you from being too frustrated and pulling your hair out like I've got most of mine's out here. But a soil test will tell you whether it will give you all the chemical makeup of your soil, and it will tell you what your soil is lacking. So it's a very good tool that you need to do before you think about throwing the seeds into the soil and hoping that they will come up.
So is a soil test something that we can, is that something that we can get from the county extension office where they do a soil test for us?
Yeah, yes, they charge a small amount for, and they give guidelines about what to do, how to gather your soil from various places where you're going to have your garden, and the procedure for gathering it. And it's very simple. They just want a sampling of soil on your property or wherever you're going to grow so that they can test it and give you the makeup. So you'll know what additives you're going to need, amendments, whether you're organic or not. We're using organic practices. So whatever they suggest for us, we're going to look for the organic means of supplying, if we have a lack of potassium or a lack of, they'll show you what you need, what the percentage is, and you can determine how much more you want to, increase things. Of course, if you know what your plant likes, then it'll show you, if I'm going to grow tomatoes and I need a more acidic soil, then I need to build up this because I don't have that. It's lacking. So that's what it'll do. And it'll give you a jump start on what your soil is like.
And there are kits that you can get from a store to do it. But if you have never done it and you've never, you're not familiar with it, it's best to pay the small cost at your extension office and let them tell you what you need for your soil.
Okay. Because I wondered about if you could do it yourself. I know some people do that testing, but I'm not sure how the store kit would work.
Yeah, and the thing of it, the do-it-yourself kits, some of them are hit and miss, and I personally would rather just use the extension services because these folks are still doing research. They are telling you the latest breaking stuff that's out there. Um, so stop in and get familiar with those and introduce yourself to those people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and a lot of diseases come from you not knowing what's in your soil. So when you do that soil test and you are like, okay, well, I have this picture of this disease, and you go to your extension service and show it to them, they'll tell you exactly what disease it is and what you can do or what you can add to your soil to either make that plant healthy or make sure another plant isn't affected by the same disease. So the extension service is a great resource when it comes to growing your own food. And you don't have to be a big farmer, or you don't even have to call yourself a farmer. They're there for people who want to grow stuff.
Okay.
And also stay away. You may have some folks, you may have a little bit of land, and somebody says, hey, I got some soil over here, you can take that. Nope. You need to test it because their soil may have some nematodes or something in it. Mm-hmm. And as they would say in our area, people had a worse situation than you may have started out with.
A worse situation.
A worse.
So, okay, so, and I'm glad you brought that up, Ms. Catherine, about you don't have to be a big farmer because people are aware. I remember before I even started doing this show, I used to work down in Athens, and I would see that extension, that UGA extension for the state of Georgia. And I always thought it was just for, major farmers. Even if you just want to do a backyard garden, or you're doing something on your porch or your balcony, not your balcony, but anywhere you're working directly with the soil, no matter how big it is or how small, it's always beneficial to check with the county extension office. Am I telling everybody right?
Right. Yeah. And even if you got house plants that you're seeing some weird things happen to, take a picture of it, or even take a sample of it down there and let them do the research, and they'll be able to tell you, one, how you can get rid of the situation, or whether you may have to start all over again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So even, because I know that, you go to places like Home Depot and Lowe's, and they sell, they'll sell a soil that people use, and they'll take that and mix it in with whatever they have in their backyard. What's your position on that? How do y'all feel about that?
So most of that stuff, I think they have a goal, which is selling things and producing a profit for their investors. I see that there is easier way that you have pretty much everything you need right there where you are. And I know, so here in Georgia, all those services are free. I mean, they send you everything from the envelopes to take the sample. They show you how to sterilize the equipment to gather the sample, and where to send it to. So that's all free. So I'm really slow to go in Lowe's and Home Depot and come out with, a couple $100 worth of soil and stuff like that. It's relatively safe, but there's natural methods to get things done. And the way I see it, if you're in the business to maybe grow some food, then almost negate the benefit by how much money you can go in Lowe's and Home Depot, how much money you can go in there and spend. So that's usually my last option. Now, I will go in there and buy stuff like peat moss to add to the soil when I'm going to grow sweet potatoes, because I'm in the mountains up here in Atlanta, so we have to soften the dirt a lot. So I will go in there and get stuff like peat moss and things like that, but I'm really slow to go and buy dirt. We're surrounded by it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I understand. So a lot of places have, and I didn't even think to ask you about this beforehand, but a lot of places do those raised bed gardens. Mm-hmm. And so it's they don't they usually go they usually go and buy a significant amount of soil to put in their raised bed garden. So for those persons who want to do raised bed gardens, what's your recommendation if they want to stay organic?
I think it's kind of what we sort of been talking about. To have it tested, and to have it tested, and to that service. I know in Georgia is free.
Okay,
Now,
I guess what I'm referring to is okay. So if you're gonna do backyard garden, you want to do raised bed garden. I mean that's gonna call. We want to just use our own dirt and not go to Home Depot. That's gonna call for us to dig up our own soil in the yard to build that raised bed, right?
mhm.
Well, it doesn't always have to be soil. You can have some leaves, you can get some cardboard. I mean, the food that's going bad in your kitchen, throw that in there. There's enough food waste in our landfills, and we have to do something to remedy that. And the best thing you can do for your soil is to give it some green. And the green that's rotting in your kitchen is the best
Yeah,
thing you can do.
In fact, going back to what Catherine was saying, if you're going to do a raised bed, one of the first things I would recommend after you have it built is to put down cardboard. Why do you put down cardboard? Cardboard, one, is a good weed blocker. Number two, cardboard is biodegradable. And cardboard will also help attract earthworms. Why earthworms? Earthworms will definitely help nourish your soil. And when they poop, which is the worm casting, it will provide additives into your soil. So you may, if you go that process, one, don't expect to have, grade A fruits and vegetables maybe for a 2 or 3 planting season, because that soil has to build up. And the more you put your green matter in there, like your leaves and your home scraps and stuff, you're adding nutrients, because guess what? The same product, that nutrition that was in the plants that you loved is going to be in the fibers of that plant when it starts breaking down. And whatever was good for that plant is going to add to other plants as they come up.
Okay, so we have to be prepared to. So basically, you're creating your own soil from organic matter. Like
There's a method that's called the spaghetti garden, which Catherine alluded to. Some of those lasagna gardening, and so it's building layer upon layer of debris from your kitchen, from your yard, from so you're just putting one layer on top of another, and it's building compost. You're planting into natural resources, and you don't have to necessarily buy a lot or go get lots and lots of soil to do that. So it's using what you have, like she was saying already, take those vegetable scraps and let them compost and break down those things. Well, like we'll take when we clean out our chicken coops and all of that hay and straw mixed in with the chicken feces, those things we eventually break down and become composted and will become good food for whatever we eventually plant in a raised bed. And we have some here on our property that we use primarily for our kitchen garden, not so much for the farm business. It's just for us.
And this is the fall of the year. Of course, leaves are now falling from the trees. If you would take something and shred those leaves up either in a pile, or if you put it in that box, they will start breaking down a whole lot faster, and two, you'll begin to build up that nutrient soil that you want to have to grow your plants.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of this may seem disgusting at first, but you have to think about where your food comes from.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're out in nature, back in the old days, before people started growing stuff for production, your food had to decompose itself to grow back up.
Right.
Yeah.
So while it is really disgusting, and there are a lot of bugs,
Yeah.
but it's the natural process of things.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's okay then if we use, like you talk about the food scraps, the greens that we may have discarded, that we've gotten from the grocery store, which is not organic. And it's okay to use that to eventually make organic, our own organic soil. It's still
It's
okay.
1,000% okay, because everything is going to decompose. It's going to die back. It's going to get too hot to keep any type of thing that can harm you in there.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
So
this is with the raised bed garden. We
this
basically
is for any garden.
Any
You can
garden.
use it for any garden.
Mm-hmm. And save your
We're-
coffee grinds and your tea bags and your eggshells and
Go-
all of those things, and put them in there and mix them up.
Yeah, stop by your local coffee shop, because they got to get rid of those coffee grinds that they made your lattes and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That coffee grinds is good organic matter to help your plants.
There is a company that has it already bagged, and you can just pick it up. I don't know if we should say it,
Can we say the company?
but there is a coffee company that has, and they call it Grinds for the Garden. And you can go by and just pick it up, take the bag. You don't even have to purchase anything from them. Just go in and get the bag and take it out and use it for your garden.
And so that's a kind of fertilizer though, right?
Mm-hmm. It's an insecticide too. Coffee is a natural insecticide.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
You want us to give you the company?
Yes.
Starbucks.
Starbucks has it.
Mhm.
They have it available usually in the front of the store. You can just walk in and pick it up and take it right back out.
But also any coffee
Any
shop,
coffee shop.
any coffee shop around, go in and introduce yourself to the folks. Ask them. You may have to take a bucket that they can put it in, but that's going to help you. So I mean, go down to Lowe's, get a $3 bucket with a top, and so when they get through with the coffee, they can put it in there, and you will go by and pick up your coffee grinds.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, that's good to know. That's good to know. And that I didn't even ask you guys about that ahead of time. I know in my backyard, we are going to start a raised bed garden, and it just occurred to me that I don't want to go, like Mr. Foster, I don't want to go to Home Depot and Lowe's and buy $200 worth of soil. I want it to be organic, and I want to be, but at the same time, I'm too old to dig up all the dirt and fill up that raised bed garden, because I want it to be kind of high. But then again, I'm listening to what you guys are saying about creating your own soil, and that may take, would you say, 2 or 3 different growing cycles, Mr. Jones? Is that what you
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the thing of it. Go ahead, Calvin. You started to say something.
Well, the thing of it is, like for me here, I have a lot of pine trees, and I have a lot of oak trees and things like that. So the only thing I really did for my beds that were above ground, I simply moved that top layer of really fresh leaves away and sticks, and I could go almost a half a foot down, and there were just layers and layers and mounds of naturally composting leaves and straw, and you could just tell a wood bark that was just breaking down in layers, and that was almost perfect for me to grow in. So there is, if you have any kind of yard, most trees are going to have this layer of top compost that is just waiting to be taken up. So it really didn't take me a whole bunch of work to fill up my raised beds. And so what you want to really try to avoid, I think we were getting on sort of lead into, I thought somebody was going to say it, was what I call virgin dirt. And that is, finding a spot that I'm going to plant a garden in the ground. And generally those spots are going to have a pretty low yield. because that dirt has basically been what we consider hard paying for could be 30, 40, 50 years. Because you got to think about it. When we garden here in America, we're only dealing with the first 6 to 8 inches of dirt. And so under that, under most dirt here, you have what's called a hard pan. And so unless that soil has been conditioned, like he keeps saying, the second and third generation, you're going to have what's called virgin dirt. You're going to get a pretty low yield from it because those nutrients that Catherine is talking about, they're not built up naturally in that spot. Those potash and calcium levels and different levels of the nutrients that you need, they're just not there. They've either leached down or never been there. So you have to really think about what you're growing in and what you're going to get out of it.
So when you mention about the virgin dirt, that kind of brings the discussion I want to talk about tilling, because I've heard so many different things about tilling, the benefit of it versus
you have to.
This is well, I hear
No.
Well, I'm gonna say this. There are a lot of no-till situations. I get that. I understand that. Some things don't need tilling. However, like for me, when I'm growing sweet potatoes, I choose to grow them. A lot of people grow sweet potatoes in raised beds and containers. I choose to grow them in the dirt. And so for me, I have to till, because if you don't till, at least where I'm at, you try to grow a sweet potato in it, I'm sitting pretty much on Stone Mountain. Ain't no sweet potato gonna grow in that.
Well, we're kind of in the same area, and sweet potatoes will grow in that. You just have to plan and prepare.
Again,
so
okay, so enlighten me what you're doing.
You lay that cardboard down, and you got to make a plan. It might not be this season where you can get some sweet potatoes in that spot, but next season you have gold that God gave you to put those sweet potatoes in.
Okay, so you're not putting them in the dirt at all? What I mean, are you?
No, you're gonna put them in the dirt. But
that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, you're gonna put them in the dirt, but you don't have to till to get that effect. So at the farm, we have one side on the left of the greenhouse where we actually till, and then on the right side there's no tilling. And
you're missing what I'm saying. I'm saying you can get the nutrients in there by. I understand that because I have a compost pile. I just bring in my compost pile and everything is already in there. But to get the plant in the ground, then I'm going to condition it to make just for the root system alone, not to add the nutrients. So one aspect is the root system that needs to burrow down to make a potato, and the second aspect is to get the nutrients there that the potato is going to need to grow. So we're talking sort of two different aspects there, I think.
Well,
okay. Now, so for my viewers that are new, like myself, can somebody explain what's tilling? Okay, what is the benefit? And then we get back into the cons of it. Somebody explain.
Go ahead, Mr. Passion Calvin.
No, I think we talk about two different processes though. You're talking about how to get the nutrients into the soil. I agree with you 100% there. I agree 100%. You can kill the weeds, cardboard.
Well,
so tilling has to do with. So here in most of the United States, we've only dealt with most soil in the United States. The first 6 or 8 inches of the soil have ever been penetrated with a metallic device or any type of farm equipment. So under that, you have what's called a hard pan. Once you get about 12 inches into the soil, it becomes like a crust. And so tilling actually allows you to break that dirt up, and it allows the root system to penetrate the soil better. That's my understanding. Yeah.
How do you till?
Huh?
Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
What's a tilling technique, Mr. Jones?
There are several tilling. Calvin mentioned mechanical. We had a gentleman down the road that had a little garden, and he tilled with a shovel
And a hoe.
And now that's old school. Okay. When we first got here, I had a 5 horsepower tiller, and that thing worked me to death. Now we've got a tractor with a tiller on it, but we're doing a project with NAFI, RAFI, which deals with color Farmers of Color Network, where we're transitioning to no-till. Our soil that we have here is not like what Calvin has up there in Georgia. I mean, we can go down, a foot, but the problem of what the soil we have is loamy sand,
Sandy loam, yeah.
which means that, it doesn't hold that much water. For some plants, that's good, but for a lot of plants, it's not because you have to put a lot of water in there. The no-till operation that we're doing with Rafi, we put down a tarp which kills the vegetation, weeds, and grass, and we lay that down for about 4 to 5 weeks. What happens is the sun builds up a lot of heat, and it kills whatever plants and seeds that's basically on that top layer. And the cons of tilling is when you till that soil, you also bring up dormant seeds that's there. But if you do the no-till, we do a process where not only we put the top down, but when we pull the top up, we lay down a layer of cardboard, which is the weed blocker. And then on top of the cardboard, we put compost. Now, what does that do for you? It saves, especially folks up in our age, it saves a lot of weeding. Because the compost, that cardboard blocks a lot of the weed seeds that were on the ground, and then you begin to build up a nourishing, power-packed soil. So the next year we continue to add compost onto that soil, and your plants grow a whole lot better. And that cardboard, after a few weeks or so, it begins to start breaking down. And when it breaks down, it becomes compost, and it also attracts worms. And worms bring worm poop, which is casting, which is extra fertilizer for your soil.
Okay, so the process of tilling, which I wanted my viewers, especially, because you guys, y'all know the terminology, but a lot of people don't understand. And it took me a minute also. It's the agricultural. This is the Wikipedia version. The agricultural preparation of soil by mechanical agitation of various types, such as digging, stirring, and overturning. And so I like to think of it as you're preparing the land for planting and growing. And that's the process that you do when you see the digging and the stirring and the overturning. And so that's just what typically what traditionally is what people have been doing to prepare the soil. So in contemporary times, there's a trend toward not doing that type of digging and stirring and overturning of the land. And so I guess my question is, if you don't do that mix to prepare the land for the maximum growth, how will you prepare the land?
You plant with a purpose, is what I call it. So to Calvin's point, there is a crust below that. Sometimes it's even 6 inches, especially when you're dealing with the red clay that we have in Georgia. But you have to, if you get into this, you start to wonder why is the soil like that in the first place? If we were planting months and months and months, years and years and years, century and millennia ago, why is the soil like this? Why isn't it better? Why doesn't it have the tilt that we need? Where's the oxygen? Why is this soil dead? And a lot of that reason is because of how much we turned over the soil and how much we tilled it. We've killed all of the nutrients, and our soil is as dead as the soil that they sell at Home Depot. And that's not what you want. That's not what a healthy plant needs. So what you do is you plant with a purpose. So you find plants that have deep tap roots so that they can bring those nutrients up to the surface. You rotate your plants, you cover crop. There's so many things that you can do to bring those nutrients up and build your soil up in a way where you don't have to harm the land that we use. We need it.
And,
Okay.
and when you plant like that, especially with no tilling, when you go through the process, you leave a lot of nutrients in the soil. And you don't agitate them that much. You also allowed, again, the good beneficial, like the earthworms, to be able to come there and help break the earthworms and the microbes to help break that soil up, which makes it over time a softer platform to plant in. So, and really, this is not something that just came around recently. It's been used for years, but it's just becoming even more popular now.
Yeah, I believe it was the French that actually did it back in the 1800s originally. The no-till method is their thing. And as you may or may not know, they have the best agricultural practices
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
in the world. So this is something that they've been doing, and their organic matter in their soil is unparalleled. So, I mean, you don't want to reinvent the wheel. You want to make sure that we're serving not only the planet, but ourselves the best we can do. And the only way to get that healthy vegetable, to get those macro and micronutrients to our brain, is to make sure we're feeding our soil, which feeds our plants.
Right. Because every time we till, we disturb all of those good nutrients that are in the soil, and it takes so much time for them to recover. So that by the time they begin recovering, somebody's tilling again. So it's an unending cycle of disturbing. It's like scratching a scab, continuing to scratch it before it really gets time to heal, and so the earth doesn't really recover from it. And so our yield and the size of our plants and the nutrients that are in our plants is sometimes poor because of that, because we've disturbed the soil so much and taken away the beneficial nutrients and the microbes that are there. They're struggling to survive, but we keep tilling it and it keeps killing it.
And
Right.
then we begin to start adding more work to ourselves, because when we till, the dormant seeds come up,
The weed seeds,
the
grasses.
and stuff. So you've got another battle there. You're spending more time in the field instead of watching your plants grow and giving them what they need. Then you've got to worry about getting rid of these pests, these weed pests, that if you don't, they will end up killing or choking out the root system for your beneficial plants. And if you don't do that, then you all your work would have gone in vain.
So that's I'm glad you all are bringing this up about this. Well, I'm glad we had this question about this tilling versus no tilling. So even if you have a small garden, or like how we're getting ready to do raised bed garden, we need to make sure that we're planning what we're going to plant. So like how I said I wanted to do spinach. What you're saying is that I may need to I guess rotate what I'm planting in the bed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So one thing I do is like, and straight to what Catherine was saying, I mix. I'm gonna look more into that because she's got me excited about it. So I'm willing to learn on this show just as well as anybody else. My thing is though, I'm what's called an Eden gardener. I'm an Eden gardener. So in many cases, to fight the weeds with the cardboard he's talking about, I use wood chips. My whole garden is covered in wood chips. And so I do till, but I also, when I till, I'm bringing in, I have in my backyard right now, compost powder that's probably about 3,000 pounds. And I grow that every year. Those are sweet potato scraps. Those are sweet potato vines. Those are old, cantaloupes that didn't get eaten, cantaloupe rounds. I do all of that and compost it and turn it all year long. So every year I plant, I bring in about 3,000 pounds of compost to lay the initial layer. And so I really am sort of growing in my own dirt, but I really like the later cardboard first method. But Eden Garden is pretty much the same thing where I'm planting the garden on top of wood chips. And then to protect my plants from the weeds and things, we cover them or surround them with wood chips. And those wood chips will eventually break down and become a soil layer also. But the other thing I like to do is what's called crop rotation. So in one place where I'm planting, just say, I planted in the left of my garden, I planted okra and field peas this year, pink-eyed purple hull peas. I know that those pink-eyed purple hull peas, they fix a ton of nitrogen into the soil. So the next crop I plant in that spot will be a nitrogen starved plant, which may be corn or something of that nature, which really needs a lot of nitrogen, which the peas have already fixed in the dirt. So understanding how plants use the soil and which plants do which things to the soil is also very beneficial.
Right.
And we also provide a copy, again, going back, what things you can do. If go back to your extension office, and they produce a book that we have. It's called the Southeastern Vegetable Extension Workers Handbook, and in that, it will tell you what all kind of plants that you should plant in your particular area, what additives, what things that you may need to add to the soil based on a soil test that you if you would get from them. It will tell you when to plant them, when you should expect to harvest those plants. It's a real helpful book to get. So do your research, your due diligence to go ahead and do that research and go make that visit, because it will pay you big dividends down the road.
Mm-hmm. Now, but one thing, we're just about, we're just about toward the end of our sharing. But I wanted to make sure that we've covered, some things that will be beneficial for those that, well, all of it has been beneficial. I want to make sure we kind of cover a lot of some other points. Do you have any? Okay, here it is. With winter quickly approaching, what are some staple plants, foods, spices, etc., that people should begin to plant? And if they have been planted, what should they be looking at harvesting? Are there any hardy vegetables or plants that you feel would do better than others in the fall and winter?
Well, if you're sort of behind the curve right now on planting some of the stuff, if you're talking about your brassicas, you're talking about
3 weeks ago.
Yeah, you're talking about collards, cabbage, kale, broccoli, rutabagas, turnips. You can even plant turnips, purple top or regular white top turnips, even in December. But the primary brassicas, like I mentioned before, collards, cabbage, kale, rutabagas. You should have planted those several weeks back. Who knows? I mean, how the weather's been going lately? You may be able to get by and get some in the ground right quick. I know Lowe's and Home Depot, they're selling them because they don't worry about whether you're going to be able to produce. I mean,
right? They just want to get it running.
Yeah, they want to get it out.
Right.
And then something else that you can plant is sugar peas.
Mm-hmm.
But the weather's been kind of warm. I know here in Georgia we're still seeing 80-degree weather and better, and we're here in October. So,
but that's not always the case though, because these plants, what I found is, like, some guys are like, okay, I'm gonna plant year round because the days are warmer. But I think the plants react to that. They know when the growing season is up. When they work off photosynthesis, and they can tell when the light has diminished in a day. And so what they will usually do if you plant them that late, they will do what's called bolting. They'll plant, they'll sprout, they'll shoot flowers straight up, and they'll go straight to seed. Yeah, they go straight to seed. So most of those plants will call bolting. So you have to make sure because plants are very intelligent, and so
Okay, so we're going into fall and into winter. What should we, if we don't plant, to
condition.
what should we be doing with our soil? Is this
Well,
a time to do cover crop or what?
it is a time to do cover crop, but I wouldn't put planting behind you just yet. There are some staples that you can get in the ground that will still produce for you. You want to look at carrots; they take forever to grow. Garlic is a good one. It stores well, and I mean, right now with everybody being sick and flu season coming around, you want to have some garlic because it's just going to come back around next year. It'll be flu season next year. And like I said, it stores well. There's
Onion.
Swiss chard. You can do your kale. You can do onions, kohlrabi. You have some root vegetables that just take forever to grow. Just go ahead and put it in the ground and see what it does. See if it'll grow in your soil. Like Mr. Jones said earlier, you cannot be scared to experiment and fail. That's the only way you're going to learn. So
Lettuce, the various varieties of lettuce. This is the ideal time to plant lettuce, but you got to be also mindful. Check the weather. So if the weather is you expecting a frost, you want to probably get you an old sheet and cover them up at night and pull that sheet off the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now I'm glad you mentioned that about a sheet, because the other thing that someone may be wondering about is what kind of, okay, I'm getting ready to start my garden, but what kind of tools do I need? Because I bought
the spade.
stuff I haven't used yet. So what do I need just to start out?
You let Catherine tell you don't need anything. That's willpower.
It also depends on how large that you're planning on going. If you plan on doing a container garden, you may just need a little spade, hand spade,
A spoon.
and a spoon. But the basic things that you would need is a shovel, a hoe, a good rake, and a good bat.
A good bag.
You're gonna need that. You're gonna need that. So for me, I'm getting ready to do my church is giving up 4 acres, and I now have the leeway to basically start a community garden, all of that. So for me right now, I don't want to do it right now. I'm burned out from this summer, so I am doing soil conditioning. I'm doing what Catherine said. I'm adding nutrients to that soil without tilling. I'm adding lime because lime is a slow-acting nutrient and it needs time to leach into the dirt and to really affect the soil, sometimes as much as 6 months. So I'm adding lime to that soil to get it ready to return for the spring of next year. So I'm not growing anything, but I am doing soil conditioning. I'm adding nutrients to the place that I'm going to work next year.
You know, if you put some cardboard down and some mushroom compost, you won't need the
There we go.
And don't forget about your grass clippings.
Yeah, exactly.
You put those.
Not that many anymore.
Well, I know it's not any grass clippings right now, but I mean, again, I can't emphasize it enough. Instead of taking your leaves from your oak trees and stuff that you're putting in these bags and taking them to the convenience center, put them in a pile and let them begin. And if you have a shredder or even a lawnmower, run the lawnmower over and break them up. And then because that causes it to break down even faster.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is some good stuff. I've been trying to write stuff down while you're talking and make sure I stay on top of things for myself and my own knowledge base. And finally, I want to say a word, you guys, to offer some direction on the different types of pesticides, because these days we're trying to stay chemical free. We all want to be organic, and so what's your position on what can we do, to fertilize, pesticide, whatever we need to do in that realm. Anybody?
I can start off with an El Cheapo.
Okay.
Take about 2 tablespoons of cayenne pepper and about a couple drops of liquid detergent, either Dawn or Ivory Snow. Shake it up. If you got a sprayer, like little sprayer container, and spray that on your plants. It will help to ward off insects.
Okay.
Vinegar and water is a good one.
Yep.
What was that? Vinegar and water?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I use that for so a lot of people are having problem with deer. So I have a backyard that's full of deer, and I'm always fighting the deer. My dogs are chasing them. I'm fighting them. I'm trying to kill them with a bow and arrow. Everything I do to keep the deer out of my garden. So one thing I use is cayenne pepper, raw eggs, and garlic. And you just basically let that sit in a container and ferment for about a week or so.
Okay.
You spray it over your garden, and the deer bite into that and take off running. So if you don't want your plants eaten up by deer, and you don't want to use those pesticides and things like that, then that's a simple trick: garlic, cayenne pepper, eggs, stuff like that to keep the deer out of your garden.
And so, did you say put it in a container, or what did you say?
You could actually for that, because it's got eggs in it, and the cayenne, the eggs sometimes it'll sort of want to gum up a little bit. But I take like a little paintbrush and just scatter it over the garden just a little bit. And if all they got to do is get 1 or 2 tastes of it, and they know that there's a possibility of them biting into it somewhere else, and they leave it all alone. So I kept the deer and the rabbits out of my garden all year, and the squirrels and rodents, just with that cayenne pepper, garlic, and eggs.
Okay. All right. Anybody else?
And if you have rotten eggs, use those.
Yeah, I do let them ferment for about a week or so. It gets pretty funky, but it works.
Yeah. I know firsthand.
I think the best pest control you can do is a walkthrough. If you're not paying attention to your garden, even when you are paying attention to your garden, these bugs can tear stuff up. My home garden, my cabbages were decimated last week. I was in tears. I don't even know what type of bug it was, but they just had a party in there. And I have 1 cabbage head left.
Probably army worms. They got up my sweet potatoes.
They were terrible. So you got to pay attention, because you can spray everything and you can do everything. But if you're not looking and you're not out there paying attention to your plants, they'll get you.
Now, Ms. Catherine, you said you were talking earlier about some type of a cocktail.
Oh, yeah. So if you already have plants, you can mix either comfrey or aloe, some hot pepper with some water. If you want it to stick a little bit, you can use okra leaves, make it a little slimy, and just swish it around in a bucket. Put it in a sprayer like Mrs. Jones said, spray it around, and your bug problem, your flying insect problem, let me put it that way, won't exist anymore. And if you add soap, it'll take care of the mealy bugs, like the little white fuzzy ones.
Okay.
So there's lots of things you can do.
I know one thing we noticed at the food court is we see these little yellow ladybugs. Are you guys familiar with the yellow ladybugs? Is that something that we be concerned about? We're seeing a lot of those.
The inside out ladybug, where it's kind of brownish, tannish colored.
Yeah, is that what I say? They're yellow, but yeah, I say they're brownish, tannish. Is that something we need to be vigilant about, making sure that we get rid of them, or what's that?
I believe that it's a environmental issue. So you just want to check. You can plant plants. What's a good one?
Marigold, maybe.
Marigold is a good one to keep them away. Also,
Basil.
Yep, that's the one I was thinking about. Basil is a good one. Oregano is a good one to keep those away too.
Mm-hmm.
But the more herbs you plant, you got to remember, you got to keep that diversity in your garden. So the
Right.
more varieties of things that you have, the less likely it is for you to get the things that you don't want.
Okay. All right. All right. All right. So I think we pretty much covered just about everything. For those people that are living in apartments and spaces with limited yard space, create like a garden bed. Um, what are some of your recommendations as we get ready to close out? I know we talked a little bit earlier about the bag garden,
The grow bags.
grow bag. Yes, yes. Talk about the grow bag just a little bit and what that what's the benefits of that versus any soil you don't have.
Well, grow bags are very popular and they're in the stores now, but you can make your own grow bags. As a matter of fact, some people are using um, shopping bags and or uh, pet food bags, saving those and putting their potting soil mixture inside the bag and growing in those. Um, so those are movable. You can place them wherever you want to, and they're small enough so that you don't have to be overwhelmed by the amount that you're growing, and you can. They're easy to manage. So grow bags are good for that reason.
Okay, grow bag. Okay. Any other techniques for small spaces?
I use the bins. You go
Mhm.
get I found bins at Lowe's. I think me and my wife got like 4 of them. They were like $4 or $5 a piece, just little plastic tote tubs.
Mhm.
We took the tops off those, and actually, what I did was stack them side by side, and I put a piece of fence up, and I ran all of my cucumbers up through that thing. So we actually grew cucumbers on a trellis, but even if you had just 1 or 2, if you lived in like an apartment and all you had was a balcony, you could take 2 of those bins and you now have 2 containers pretty much big enough for a mobile garden that you could carry anywhere. So there's nobody who can't grow something if you have access to sunlight.
Right.
My favorite cheap solution for small space gardening is the old school throw it over your door shoe holder, the one that has like 24 different
Yeah.
things. The first place I rented out, I just wanted to grow some food. I had no space to do anything, but I put one of those over the back door and just stuck some soil in them. I had herbs in the first 2 rows, lettuce in the second 2 rows, and then strawberries at the bottom row. So you can grow food anywhere.
Right.
Really simple. And it was $3 for that shoe container.
That's neat. I really like
Oh,
that.
Yeah.
I hadn't even thought about that one. That was amazing.
Well, we certainly enjoyed having this show and tonight, and we enjoyed each and every one of you. And we thank you so much for your expertise. People like me who are just really like late bloomers and really getting into getting into farming. We are amazed by some of the things that you have given us tonight and continue to give us. We have another show coming on Friday. Most of everybody knows that we do a show. We do a show like this once a month, and we will most likely have you all, each of you, back again for our show in November. And November is a powerful month when we talk about Thanksgiving, and, things of that nature. We'll talk a little bit more about what we're going to do for Thanksgiving at a later time. But thank you guys so much. And thank each and every one of you for being a part of this hour. Again, I invite each one of you to follow us on our social media network. Check us out on our website, perspectiveson.org. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram. We're on LinkedIn. I invite each and every one of you to be a part of our social media network, but we're always addressing social justice issues. food security is just one. We will not have a show on next Thursday, but the following Thursday will be our show that will take place after the upcoming presidential election, and we promise to have some dynamic preachers of the gospel that will share their perspective from a faith perspective from the churches. The church will give its natural response to the presidential election on next week. And not next week, but the following week, the Thursday after the presidential election. And I invite each and every one of you to come back and tune in on that Thursday, November the 5th at 6:30, where you'll definitely hear the world's voice on the results. No matter who wins, it's definitely going to be a show that I invite all of you to tune in, share, ask questions, and be informed. And I thank each and every one of you for watching. A special thanks to Peace of Public Radio. And as we leave you, I leave you with those famous words by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, that whatever affects one directly affects us all indirectly. Thank you, and have a good night.
Welcome to Perspectives On, where we're giving the world a voice. We are a faith-based social justice forum where individuals give their perspectives on various topics. It's an opportunity to express their viewpoint, their stance, and their angle on justice issues affecting the community and globally. Each episode features guests presenting their perspective on things like climate change, the church, urban farming, and food insecurity, all through a unique faith lens. Come check us out. Give us your perspective.